Welcome to Designer Digital's bi-weekly tip, August 15th, 2014. This week, adding drop shadows to Vellum. Vellum embellishments and papers have a really pretty translucent appearance. They're great to use over photos or papers because you get a softening effect on your original image. Adding a drop shadow to Vellum can be a little bit tricky. Trying the usual method results in a darkening or a graying of the Vellum. Here's how to give Vellum a realistic looking drop shadow. Begin by opening a piece of digital paper and a Vellum image that you'd like to shadow. Get the Move tool and drag the Vellum image onto the background paper. Next, you're going to add a drop shadow to the Vellum layer. You can either use one of Katie Petit's drop shadow styles by going to the Effects palette and then choosing her drop shadow and adding it. Or you can use the installed drop shadows that come with your software. Doing this, you'll get a drop shadow on your Vellum, but the Vellum also turns gray. So we're going to put the drop shadow on its own layer. Go back to the Layers panel and double-click the FX icon on the right side of the Vellum layer in the Layers panel. This brings up the Style Settings dialog box. Under Drop Shadow, move the distance slider to the right. You'll notice that it moves the shadow under your Vellum to the right as well. It's a little tricky, but go ahead and move the shadow so that it's separate from your Vellum embellishment. When it's completely separated, click OK. Move the Vellum embellishment so that you can see both the shadow and the embellishment, and then right-click on your Vellum layer and choose Simplify Layer. You can also do this by choosing Layer, Simplify Layer from the menu bar at the top. Next, get the Marquee tool. You can either use a rectangular or you can use one of the others like the elliptical if you have a round embellishment that you're using. I'm going to get the rectangular since our embellishment is a rectangle. Click and drag a selection around just the Vellum but not the shadow. Right click inside this selection and choose Layer via Cut. Now look over in the Layers panel. You'll see that the Vellum embellishment is on top and that the drop shadow is on its own layer underneath the Vellum layer. Now you can move them independently. Now you can get the Move tool and drag the Vellum layer over the shadow layer or the shadow layer under the Vellum layer and line them up so that the shadow peeks out from under the Vellum in the position of your choice. Next, you'll want to get rid of the gray portion underneath the Vellum. So first, hide the drop shadow layer by clicking the Layer Visibility icon, which looks like an eyeball on the left side of the drop shadow layer over here in the Layers panel. This is going to hide the drop shadow. Get a selection tool like the rectangular or elliptical marquee tool, choosing a selection that matches the shape of your Vellum. Zoom in and make a very careful selection around your Vellum. You're just going to click and drag to make the selection. Turn the layer visibility back on the drop shadow layer by clicking the Layer Visibility icon again. Now select the drop shadow layer and press Delete or Backspace on your keyboard. Press Ctrl D or on a Mac system Command D on your keyboard to remove the marching out selection. You'll be left with the shadow outside of the Vellum, but the gray will be gone. So here's our selection with the drop shadow and without. Finally, hold down the Control key or on a Mac system the Command key and click both the Vellum layer as well as the drop shadow layer. Click the little link icon on the left side of one of these layers to link the two together. And now when you want to move the position of the Vellum, it will also move the shadow with it. This is how you can add a little realism by adding a drop shadow without altering the integrity of your Vellum. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure to check back in 2 weeks for the next Designer Digitals tip.